I wish I could say that the clang of metal on metal was the wake-up call I needed, but reality had other plans. The world around me was dark, heavy, and scented with damp earth. I squinted against the suffocating shadows, wrestling my way back from the fringes of unconsciousness, where nightmarish voices taunted me with promises I didn't want to realize. Now, wake up already. A voice barked, jarring me from my groggy confusion. I was still sprawled across the cold, damp floor of the dungeon I had unwittingly fallen into, part prison, part spectacle. Grit and grime clung to my skin, and instinctively I rolled to my feet, swaying slightly, the world narrowing to a single focus: survival. The source of my unwelcome awakening belonged to Torin, a brawny figure resting against the barred door, a shackle chain rattling against his wrist as he grinned, looking as though the sheer absurdity of my predicament amused him. He puffed out his chest, barely fitting through the visible cracks in the thick iron bars. "We have to hurry," he said, gaze flicking nervously to the passageway beyond the door. "They'll be here soon." The urgency in his voice curled my stomach into tight knots. I recognized the tone of someone who had seen too many dark moments to not feel the pressure of impending doom. "Right, because I just love being captured in a dungeon," I said, sarcasm edging my disbelief as adrenaline surged through my veins. "What's our escape plan? You going to punch a wall until it breaks?" He might have cracked a smile, but I couldn't tell if it was genuine or just a mask hiding frustration. "You think I haven't tried? These walls are a masterpiece of dwarven design." He dragged a hand down his stubbled chin. "We need to make a distraction, and quickly." Just then, a heavy footfall stamped along the corridor, resonating against the walls, punctuating Torin's rising desperation. The air thickened with the palpable energy of impending danger. My heart hammered, matching the rhythm of the footsteps until I could feel it echoing in my throat. An instinctual warning that shot through me like fire. "Where are your friends?" I demanded. Difficult to create a distraction solo. Ere they were caught, he hesitated. The wall was more trustworthy than his words. "One by one, and I don't want to be next." The flicker of fright across his face cut through the layers of bravado, revealing something raw and untainted, a personal struggle. The footsteps drew closer, dragging a haunting cadence. In the gloom, shadows danced like wraiths, and I could almost feel the gaze of whatever loitered beyond the bars, its intentions sharp and murky. I turned to the narrow window, clawing to find focus. The darkness was alive, and my instinct to flee shouted louder than any self-doubt. "What's going on out there?" I whispered, leaning closer, spine prickling against the chill. "Nothing good. We're in the Cragger dungeon, prison for rebels, outcasts, and anyone else who's gotten too close to the truth," Torin replied, his tone steadying as if accepting the weight on his shoulders. "It will end up as tests for whatever they're brewing. The Kyler Corporation has shifted their method from extraction to something darker." I stepped back, heart pounding. "Tests? You're joking, right? It's no joke when you wake up to find you're the centerpiece of a mad scientist's bloody banquet," he snapped. "And you wouldn't be here unless you had something that matters." I backed away instinctively, the message hitting harder than any physical blow. They'd brought me here for a reason, and I was tethered to something they wanted, some question unanswered, some truth buried within me. The tantalizing mystery hung thick in the air, a thread begging to be tugged. "Focus," Torin rasped, his voice shifting into a sharp command. "When that door swings open, we need to bolt." And just like that, the hinges squealed, the iron door rattled, and a brilliant flood of light poured in, illuminating the grotesque silhouettes of guards, clad in their black exosuits, robotic enhancements glinting with malice. I had moments to dwell upon the horror of what awaited us. The choice between submission and fight coiled tightly around my chest. "Yeah, you might want to reconsider that distraction," I murmured, glancing at the hallway blazes of light that were coming to seize us. "You ready?" Torin asked, steeling himself beside me. For a brief moment, I was only a heartbeat away from unraveling the cords of fate binding me here to this moment, but I couldn't let fear absorb me. I didn't even know the truth of my own existence, and I surely wasn't about to let those bastards take me without a fight. Always, I said, exhaling the weight of good humor and desperation together, recalling the flickering flame that had burned bright throughout my life, even in the darkest corners of a dungeon. The moment stretched long, a breath between beats, and as they breached the threshold, I felt no shackles, only the primal fire of instinct roaring in my chest. A flash of movement, and we burst into the blinding light beyond the door, the weight of my impending destiny tantalizingly close as I hurtled towards whatever truth awaited me in the chaos outside. But there was a question hanging in the air, a whisper that trailed behind me even as I raced forward. What was so special about a human from a dungeon, and would I find the answer before it was too late? The blinding light bathed the corridor in an eerie glow, the gray walls pulsating with energy, growing warmer as we sprinted away from the clutches of our captors. My heart pounded like a war drum, but as Torin led the charge, the chaos began to feel exhilarating rather than terrifying. I could hear shouts behind us. The guards were rallying, but were still far enough that we had a moment to gather ourselves before the chase intensified. A left, Torin barked, diverting toward a narrow passage that branched off from the main corridor. I followed without hesitation, my instincts screaming that this was our only chance. The sharp turn sent my heart racing anew, a thrill coursing through my veins. With every step, we moved deeper into the unknown, further from the world that had imprisoned us. The walls here were rough and uneven, echoing the pounding of our footsteps like a heartbeat of this forsaken prison. It was in this moment, this wild sprint toward the uncertain, that dread and hope tangled like interwoven roots. We emerged into a larger chamber, the ceiling towering high above like a vault, shadows creeping in the corners like forgotten dreams. Strange machines whirred and clicked, their purpose hidden in the growing darkness. I paused briefly, absorbing the sight. What had been hidden beneath the dungeon? Beams of flickering neon pooled across the floor, illuminating the remnants of what appeared to be an advanced sub-level laboratory. Come on, we can figure out the layout here later. Torin's voice pulled me back from my thoughts. He tugged on my arm, urging me forward. This time, I didn't need to be told twice. As we dashed deeper into the laboratory, I couldn't shake a rising sense of urgency flooding my mind. The guards would not be far behind. In here, Torin whispered, leading me into a cramped room cluttered with strange-looking instruments, monitors blinking erratically in the shadows. Any plans? I whispered back, attempting to mask the pulse of fear threading through my tone. The flickering lights swallowed the room in transient illumination, throwing shadows that danced menacingly across metallic surfaces. Those guards won't be satisfied until they've caught back whatever they lost, he said, his face a mixture of determination and dread. We just have to buy ourselves enough time. If I can get one of these computers to work, great, but do you even know how? I interrupted, a hint of sarcasm escaping between my cracked lips. It was my defensive mechanism, a feeble attempt to lighten the terror that danced along my spine. His eyes darted across the screens, unfazed. I might have hacked into a few systems before I got captured, he replied, a hint of pride slipping through his confidence. Just keep a lookout. Before I could respond or voice the swirling questions floating through my mind, why me? What was I worth? The screeching footsteps echoed closer, and I could almost feel the evil intent creeping nearer, drumming against my skin. The guards weren't merely searching for us anymore. They were expecting to find something. As Torin worked at the console, fingers flying across the keyboard, the tension between us thickened, crackling like static electricity. I kept watch at the door, listening intently as their voices became clearer, their angry shouts blending with echoes that bounced off the steel walls. They went this way. We can't let them escape. The temperature of my resolve began to drop, giving way to panic as I turned to watch Torin, lost in a frenzy of commands. Hurry, I urged, my voice stifled by mounting fears of being overwhelmed. I just need a connection, yes, he exclaimed all of a sudden, his excitement palpable. There's an exit code buried in this system. It's tied to the central control unit. Can you override it? I leaned closer, feeling the weight of the world pressing against my chest. The reality of our situation shone like a beacon. The only way out rested in that computer, and our time was dwindling. If I can just reroute the access, we could gain control over their lock systems. Just a few more seconds, he replied, unwavering, though sweat glistened on his brow. I had only moments more to dwell on why, and how this second chance was handed to us, yet the threads of uncertainty nagged at my conscience. There had to be something deeper at play. From the corner of my eye, I spotted movement. A glint of steel shifting in the dim light. The guards were getting closer, their silhouettes creating jagged edges against the walls. Torin, I mouthed as we locked eyes, understanding swimming like a current between us. They're here. I'm almost through, he grunted, his fingers a blur over the keyboard. I rushed to the doorframe, planting myself firmly, my senses on high alert. The pounding of my heartbeat replaced the sound of the alarms that had gradually begun blaring. Each pulse felt like a counter, each second tightening the noose around our chances. Courage shot through me, cutting through my growing apprehension. If we failed, we wouldn't just lose our chance at freedom. Our lives would be reduced to tales of what could have been, a ghost story to the rebel movement. I focused my gaze to the right, where darkened figures formed like living shadows. Their shouts crackled with impatience and meanness, and though fear threatened to overwhelm me, there blossomed a fierce determination deep within. I could no longer be just a pawn in someone else's game. They're coming, I shouted, crouching low, the bitter taste of adrenaline flooding my mouth as I scanned the shadows, readying for confrontation. Torin, caught between managing the console and the chaos around us, shot one final glance my way and muttered, "Just keep them at bay for a few moments more." "Sure." No pressure, I shot back, flaring a smirk to mask my fear even as I felt it congeal in my bones. Just then, the guards burst into the room, menacing forms stepping from darkness into the flood of blinking lights. They moved with fluid authority, weapons drawn, their expressions molded into something stretched and cruel. But beneath that authority, I noticed signs of fear flickering in their glances, perhaps even doubt. Perhaps we weren't their only prize. "Look who we have here," one of the guards sneered, advancing forward. The fear freezing inside me ignited into defiance as I clenched my jaw. "Back off," I yelled, channeling the fury that had simmered beneath the surface for far too long. "Or what? You think you can stop us?" The guard laughed, a twisted grin stretching across his face, deafening over the hum of the machines behind me. I felt Torin still working furiously, the tension in the air so thick that I could almost slice it with my breath. "I'm the damned distraction," I hissed, steeling myself as I launched forward, grabbing a metal rod that lay abandoned in the chaos of the lab, a remnant of the fallen machinery. My heart set itself on defiance, pounding in solidarity with the fragility of my circumstances. "And if you want me, you're going to have to go through me." I brandished the makeshift weapon, fury churning in my core as I established a shaky resolve. The guard stuttered in surprise just for a moment. The tide shifted as uncertainty beamed from his expression. It was all the opening we needed. With a final burst of chaotic energy, Torin shouted, "I did it." The console behind him exploded with a shower of sparks, lights flickering to life, an electrifying hiss as the heavy steel door behind the guards groaned. "I can control this place now." The urgency in his voice surged, propelling us forward like a gale wind. "This is our fight," I yelled, desperation igniting into action. I lunged, using the rod to jab at the nearest guard, the action stemming from a flood of instincts screaming for survival. The guards retaliated, shouting, stumbling, but I was fueled by desperation, empowered by the possibility of freedom. "Go, get to the exit," Torin called, and I could feel the synergy of our fears and hopes forming a solid bond as we stood side by side, ready to face the storm we'd unleashed. The chaos erupted around us, a frenzy of desperation, raw emotions surfacing as we faced our captors. And within that chaos, I realized something crucial. No matter the outcome, we weren't merely fighting for ourselves. We were fighting for the very future that had been stripped from us. And through it all, a resonant question guided my heart. What price would I pay to unravel the truth buried deep within me? As the guards clashed against our resistance, I was determined to find out, and no chains would keep me bound. I don't know how long we fought. Time had become an abstract concept, bending and twisting with every meter we gained against our captors. It felt like an all-consuming whirlpool of desperation, adrenaline blazing through my veins. I swung the metal rod with every ounce of strength I possessed, determined to make my mark in this twisted game. Every clash echoed the weight of stolen lives, the promise of truth buried within these darkened walls. "Stay together," Torin shouted, his voice a beacon amidst the chaotic din. The guards lunged with their gleaming weapons, faces hardened with malice, as if convinced we were powerless against their might. They didn't know of the fire building inside me, a flickering ember that had ignited into an inferno. I feinted left, and one guard swung wildly. It was an opening. I ducked low, and with one solid thrust of the rod, I struck, uncertainty blooming in my heart, but the necessary determination pushed me through. He stumbled back, surprise splashed across his features as he clutched his arm. I cast a quick look at Torin, who was still focused on the console, an island of resilience amid the chaos. In the face of impending danger, how much longer? I yelled, fighting off another guard who closed in. "I'm working on rerouting the security feed," he replied, his focus unwavering, sweat glistening on his brow. "I just need a second." The words hung in the air, becoming more than just a promise. They were a lifeline. The guards came at us in waves, their coordinated approach a testament to training that was superior to our raw, frantic energy. But we had one thing they didn't. The spark of desperation that ignites when hope is all but lost. "Move," I shouted again as I parried a blow and returned fire. I needed space to breathe, to think. It surged through me. My fate, my purpose, my connection to this very moment. The echoes of the past layered on me like a shroud. The whispers of the Kyler Corporation's secrets slipped by, tempting me to remember everything they'd hidden. Everything within me that resonated with the weight of this reality. What were they after? Was I just another experiment, or was I part of something larger? I needed clarity, and I would get it, one way or another. With each passing moment, we danced through overwhelming odds. I pivoted, deflected another strike, and glanced at the nearest screen behind Torin, flashing information. Arcs of data scattering across the monitors, burning into my mind like a brand. A line caught my eye, and I strained to grasp its meaning. A DNA sequencing anomalies. What had they done to me? What secrets had they stripped away? My stomach knotted as fury mingled with the deepening sense of purpose. Torin's breath shifted erratically. It was time. "We're out of time," he yelled. "I'm opening the main access door now. Get ready." And just as he said that, a cooling whir rang through the chamber, and the heavy steel door across the room vibrated, signaling our exit. A surge of adrenaline flooded my senses, but my focus remained split. I had questions that needed answering amidst the chaos. "Just hold them off a little longer," I shouted, all too aware that with every passing second, the guards would close in on our hope of escape. This time, it wasn't about getting free. It was about understanding the depths of that which sought to imprison us. With renewed fervor, I went on the offensive, realizing that whatever the Kyler Corporation had seen in me, it meant something far deeper than just containment. My fingers curled tighter around that steel rod, my heart a silent thunder as we fought together against the formidable forces that sought to snuff out our flickering flames. As more guards swarmed, something primal awakened, a realization that fear should be met with defiance, and that truth should always seek the light. I barreled forward, landing blow after blow, a choreography forged in desperation. Each time I struck, a sliver of clarity pierced through the chaos. "We won't be your lab rats anymore," I shouted, frustration melding with liberation. With one final lunge, I cleared a path back toward Torin, who had knelt before the control panel, fingers flying nimbly across the keys as he executed commands to wrestle their hold. "It's almost there. Just a few more seconds," he cried, glancing up, frustration hiding just beneath the surface. My heart raced, and I positioned myself in front of him, prepared to protect. The guards were pushing harder now. Their dark forms loomed closer, weapons drawn, spite etched across their features. I could feel heat radiating from my core, a sensation akin to an electric pulse igniting through my veins. And in that moment, a revelation struck. The truth I had buried in my heart beckoned me, colored by the weight of sacrifice. "Go," I shouted at Torin, my breath hitching with the shards of the reality confronting us. "You need to finish this. I won't leave until I get answers." He hesitated, eyes locking onto mine, vulnerability woven within those fleeting moments. "You're not supposed to, and neither were you," I cut in, heart pounding, realization surging deep within. "You fought too, Torin. We deserve to know." The guards advanced, more relentless than ever. I felt the steel of their resolve and desperation tugging at the edges of my own resolve. Whatever I might uncover could change everything. It was worth every ounce of courage I had left. With no more time to argue, I shifted into a defensive stance as Torin resumed typing furiously. I pivoted, weapons clashing around us, body aching, but I wouldn't yield. I'd come too far to falter. As the door shuddered beneath their incoming charge, the weight of confrontation coiled in the pit of my stomach. Would I make it out? What fragments of myself would I reclaim if I did? I held on to my resolve. Like roots breaking through concrete, I had to push back, even if just a little. Then, as if sensing the change, a sudden alarm pierced the air. A klaxon, echoing through the chamber, shattering the tension like a shard of glass. "What's happening?" I yelled over the cacophony of sound. "The security feed is collapsing." Torin shouted amidst the chaos, fingers flying. "I can hold them for a few more seconds." There was an intensity in the air, a palpable electricity, and in that moment, everything froze, the guards, the alarms, the flickering lights around us. My mind surged with images, the sisters I had seen in the mirror, ghostly and ethereal. The echoes of shared blood, past lives entwined in an intricate web. The realization wrapped around me, overwhelming, and suddenly I understood. Their plan was about more than just control. It was about harnessing the essence of who I was, someone caught in the intersection of technology and humanity. A convergence that could change their whole narrative. "Hold them, OUT," I shouted, lunging forward, my own power manifesting into a force beyond mere survival. The guards hesitated, caught off guard by the sudden shift of presence. I could feel the energy bubbling through me, the echoes of what I had endured, what we all had endured, crashing against that electric wall. "Come on." Torin's call cut through the moment as he gestured wildly. And together, we pushed against the guards, blending our strengths and instincts into an insurmountable force, as we screamed our defiance against a world that had sought to break us. With one final swing, I connected with the lead guard's weapon, the resounding clang resonating down the hall like thunder, startling the others enough for us to slip through the doorway that opened ahead. I met Torin's eyes, a final understanding igniting between us. "You can't hold off forever," I said breathlessly, our breath mingling with hope and turmoil. "I know," he replied fiercely as we ran, freedom beckoning just beyond the horizon of fear. The corridor twisted like a labyrinth, and behind us, the guards erupted into chaos. Lights flashed erratically as torrents of alarm fired down the hall, each trickle painting the atmosphere with impending doom. They had uprooted one slippery thread from our grasp, but we couldn't afford to look behind. We could only surge forward. "Oh, you're not just any rebel," Torin yelled as we scuttled down the corridor, dodging the flickering lights. "You're one of them, the ones in the experiments. They can't keep you." The reality hit me like a wave, washing away layers of uncertainty. They had tried to control me, shape me for their desires, but what I truly was held a purpose I had not yet fully embraced. What does that mean? I countered, the discovery coursing through me like a lifeline woven through the chaos. I don't know, but they're afraid, and they're going to try to stop us. We need to get out, he shouted as we barreled through the flickers of dread infused against the unyielding walls. Finally, we rounded a corner, our pace soaring. The mingled smells of mechanical grease and machine oil invoked a curious nostalgia. There. The exit. Torin pointed, a door shining ahead like a beacon. Just as we neared, however, a shadow eclipsed the frame, and an armored figure stepped between us and Salvation, the warden, the architect of our suffering. His helmet glimmered menacing and gleeful, his voice grim as a funeral march. You think you can escape? He sounded almost poetic in his absurd confidence. This is just the beginning. Get out of my way. I screamed, defiance surging within as the energy coursed through me, drawing up from the depths I had barely begun to understand. You're going to wish you embraced who you truly are when all of this is over, he retorted. Then the room erupted. A dichotomy of light and dark swirling around us, crashing like thunder. In that fragile moment, everything we fought for rested in an aching crescendo, tearing itself against the edges of choice. Now, I yelled to Torin, channeling every ounce of fury into a single moment. And as if caught in the pull of gravity, I dove forward, using the last momentum I possessed to surge against the warden, aligned with an intent that reached beyond just the escape. It was a reminder of all I had known, the electric defiance ignited behind my fearlessness. We collided, a symphony resonating as energies clashed, a blinding force bursting forth. The air crackled as my resistance flared, blinding me for an instant, but just as quickly as the collision occurred, it erupted. A glorious splash of light, tearing apart the chains they'd wrapped around me. And then I broke free. Suddenly, the corridor exploded into clarity, enveloped in the truth I had long sought. Echoes of my past flickered in the fringes, the memories unspooling before me, revealing glimpses of everything they had hidden. I was more than a pawn, I was the key. Behind me, Torin maneuvered, scanning frantically for the exit. Come on, it's now or never. But the warden didn't relent, rallying behind, his voice coming in low, deathly against the backdrop. You don't understand. You were made for this, he shouted, fierce desperation leaking into his tone. Clearly I wasn't. I hurled forward, thundering past him, adrenaline racing. I could see the door, the echo of freedom calling. In an instant, I felt Torin's energy parallel mine, a melding force of glove against flesh. We surged together, arms entwined as we lunged through the final threshold, emerging into the blinding light outside, the echoes of the dungeon behind fading like bad dreams. We stumbled forward, faces illuminated by dawn's heavy golden rays. Freedom washed over us like a wave. I turned back, taking in the steel edifice of the Kyler Corporation. It loomed like a dark sentinel, but there was a snag of power embedded beneath its surface, waiting to be unshackled. I did it, I exhaled, feeling lighter, unchained from the burden of secrets. You did it, Torin mirrored, laughing through the fray of adrenaline. We did it. Together we faced the horizon, everything promised and everything within reach. But the question danced at the corners of my mind. What would I uncover in the wake of this release? What did it mean to be free in a world burdened with secrets? I reached deep inside, breathing in the warmth of the sun. And as the echoes traced their way through my being, I felt the embers of who I truly was ignite anew. I had a responsibility now, knowledge intertwined with a purpose I had yet to understand fully. A truth waiting to unravel, both for me and those still locked within the shadowy holds of their captivity. And even amidst the new dawn, shadows lingered, whispering their siren songs in the halls of the Kyler Corporation, beckoning me to return. But this time I wasn't afraid. I didn't need to wear chains when the truth would be my guide. Let's go, I said to Torin, determination pooling in my chest. Together, we'd free those concealed by that darkness. Together, we'd etch our names across a horizon unyielding against the night. The future was ours to reclaim, and in that moment filled with uncertainty and promise, I understood we were all part of something larger, bound together by the ceaseless pursuit of truth and connection. With hearts on fire, we set forth to meet whatever lay beyond, an adventure woven with threads of change and discovery, destiny unfolding beneath our feet as we arrived at a precipice of something beyond the ordinary. And so, the journey began anew, not merely as rebels against oppression, but as seekers of hope in a world longing for liberation. As the sun blazed overhead, a fierce brilliance crowned our newfound freedom. We turned forward, wholly unarmed against destiny, belligerently igniting into the light, ready to alter the course of history.